It is absolutely insane how much I have procrastinated making this. There is absolutely no reason. Actually, there is a reason. I was very busy and I did not feel like sitting in front of a camera and talking. But I am here now because I am done with my midterm assignments and I have free time, which is unprecedented, but I will make good use of it. So, I am here to talk about the books that I read in the month of January. And I read 3 whole books. Okay, 3.5. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, I want to talk about books. So before getting into the books, I should mention 2 things. 3 things, yes. Firstly, I am talking about these books in retrospect. So I've already read them. And they have been sitting in my mind sort of marinating for a while. It's not my immediate reaction. The second thing is that, what is it? So I have linked the sources, the infamous sources about the farmers' protest that has been going on in India, and just take a look if you wish, if you're already here. And also the books that I read, the ones that I could find, I have linked down below if you want to buy them, read them. Great. So yes, is it too late for a New Year's acknowledgement? I don't care. New Year's acknowledgement to everyone, and I think this video will go up after the Lunar New Year as well, so acknowledgement of that too. Was called Almond by Son Won Pyong, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, and it's a translated piece. And I will unabashedly admit that I first heard about it, saw it being read by Namjoon and Yoongi in BTS in the Soup, and the way they were marking the hell out of it, I really wanted to read it as well, just to know what's so special about it. And I read it and it didn't disappoint. It's really interesting. It's a bit difficult to read, but trigger warning, there are a lot of ableist slurs as well. So it is about this boy called Yoon Jae, and he has this developmental disorder called alexithymia, which essentially means that he cannot express emotions like fear, happiness, sadness, anger, cannot feel things like neurotypical people do. It becomes a problem for this boy because there are societal expectations on people to react in a certain way, and obviously he can't do that. So his mother tries to make him pretend by giving him like social cues, quite literally. So it's a very interesting study in socialization as well, how it works when it's not ingrained in people and they have to actively seek out the cues every time they interact with someone. The story starts with a tragedy. but because of which the protagonist is rendered completely alone and he has to now figure out his life on his own. He makes friends, of course, and have their own stories and their own character arcs, and the friendship between him and Gon, this other boy that he meets at school, is very complicated. It's not necessarily toxic because both of them have their own issues and they're going through it, they're learning, and it might have progressed from a very strange enemies to friends arc because he was bullied by this person. Friendship between him and Gon is very interesting because there seems to be underlying homoerotic themes, but that is just me because it's also a problem because we as a culture don't pay enough attention to friendship as a human relationship, and romance is given too much precedence, I feel. And it's problematic on my part to assume homoerotic plots just because he was ready to sacrifice everything for his friend is not fair, and I get it. There is another character who is the romantic interest, but I felt like Dora's character was there just for the sake of the romance. It wasn't necessary, but I get what the author was trying to do. That I understand, but it was just hastily put in, I feel. And the story mainly is, I will say, not about a mental illness or about struggles of a young man who's different from people, but it's mainly about friendship. So how far a person can go for the love of his friend. And it is very beautifully written. The ending is very Disney-esque, and I have no issues with it. I actually feel like the characters deserved that. I'm very glad that they got an ending like that. Might be a little unrealistic, but that's fine. That's fine, right? It's fine. We all deserve to be happy. They deserve to be happy, yes. Okay, that's book one. Okay, it's the HYYH Notes Part 2. HYYH Notes Part 2. And I guess people who are fans of BTS, part of the army, will understand what I'm talking about, but not everyone else. I will explain what it is in short. So it's basically the plot line of the story that these boys follow in their discography, mostly, not all the time, but mostly. And it's an AU, it's an alternative universe in which they live as different people different from who they are in real life, of course. That's what That's what alternative universe means. But anyway, so yeah, it's an AU where these people have different struggles in their own life, and I read it personally as a story and also to like spot different clues sprinkled through their videos everywhere. I had read HYYH part 1 back in, I think, November of last year, and I really enjoyed it. Okay, enjoyed is a strong word. I I was very touched. Because you can feel the presence of multiple authors who remain unknown because of the way it's written and because of the way the plot line proceeds. So it has time travel involved in it, sort of, and that's why you see very different plot lines, and when these different plot lines are brought together, there is sometimes a lack of cohesion, but that works because of the fact that the story has time travel in it, if that makes sense. What I liked about part 2 is the fact that it resolved many questions that we had, that we lost sleep over. It gave answers, and it also ended on a note which actually makes sense because I could relate it to a particular video that I have been thinking about a lot, and it's great. But I would still like to say, from a literary point of view, I like part 1 better because simply because it is well written. It is কিছু বক্তব্য হ্যাঁ বলো So where was I? Yes, I like part 1 better because it's better written in my opinion, and I feel like we connect to their struggles more. And keeping everything else aside, there are moments from part 1 that I remember, but to mainly focused on the mysteries which were left in part 1. So the plot proceeds well, but the character development stagnates. Yes. But anyway, one thing I would like to add about this is that you don't have to be a K-pop fan or a BTS army to be able to read HYYH. You can just read it, it's fun, it's a good story. Still not completed, so there will be another part, I'm assuming, because it ends on a cliffhanger. If it doesn't have another part, I am going to throw hands, but anyway. read is The Murder of Sir Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. And whenever I am in a reading slump or I don't have time enough to read, whenever I'm feeling low, I read a Christie because of many reasons. Firstly, because murder mysteries are my comfort read, and secondly, because I like the way she writes her characters. I like the way the deduction works in her stories. It's not stereotypical, and in fact she subverts a lot of the well-established plot lines which are most often misogynistic and racist in certain ways. Her stories lift me up because I can read them with a clear conscience. This one especially is very famous, or it's acclaimed because of the writing style. It's not just a murder mystery, but spoiler alert, it is also an unreliable narrator, and I pride myself over the fact that I could guess that, like, not entirely, but I had an idea that there was something wrong with the narrator at about page 20-ish, when he said this one line about closing the door behind him and saying to himself that I looked at everything and noticed if I had left anything undone, and I felt that was very creepy of him. And yes, in fact, at the end of the book he does mention that. So he's not unreliable because of the fact that he doesn't mislead the audience. He just writes certain parts in a way which will allow the reader to solve it. If you read through the text, if you reread the text, you will realize what things he's talking about, and that plays an important role in the story as well. Because what I especially like about the book is the way Poirot talks about the female intuition, and I have not heard this argument before, but I really liked it. A lot of times when women are right about something, especially something sinister or problematic, it is usually attributed to something called the female intuition. But what Poirot says is that women do not realize, or the fact that they have been keenly observing certain facts around them, just because of the way we have to struggle to, well, persist, I guess. Certain things get registered in our mind, and it forms a sort of deposit which acts as a source of these feelings for these premonitions. I found that really interesting. Like, I haven't read this before. I'm sure there exist certain theories about that as well, but I really like the way she talks about it. Wish I could, like, read from it, but I've returned the book to the original owner, and yes, never mind. So yeah, these are the 3 books that I read, and actually I've read 3.5 books. So I've also been reading Shin Kyun-suk's Please Look After Mom, and she's slowly becoming one of my favorite Korean writers. And family drama, the titular mother or mom, depending on what publication you're reading it from, is lost, and her children and her husband are trying to look for her, and it follows their own memories of her. So the eldest daughter, and then the eldest son, then her husband, and then finally we get her own perspective as well, but that's a spoiler and I'm not going to talk about it. It's very interesting because we see that different people remember different things about someone that they've lost. So and it shows the different dynamics and power plays that exist within a family. Daughters, both of them, the younger and the older daughter, not only remember how the mother struggled to bring them up, but they also remember how she was not completely satisfied with the life that she had. This is a theme that comes up very often when we see the perspectives of the daughters. So this older daughter narrates this whole story of how when one time she asked her mom if she actually enjoyed being in the kitchen, the mother tells her that yes, she has to, because you know that is what her purpose seems to be, but sometimes she loses it, and when she really feels irritated and frustrated by her life, she actually takes plates and breaks them, and she actually advises her daughter to do the same. But when we talk about the son, when we see the son's perspective, he only remembers his mother's struggles for him and for the family. So I just think it's a very interesting study on how patriarchy works in a family situation. I have not yet finished the part of the father's perspective, but I'm sure it will also be enlightening. The whole plot is written through memories, and memories are extremely selective, and it is telling of the social cultural situation of the people who the memories belong to, and that it delves into the relationships between people in a family, but because it shows the way these relationships are formulated, maintained, and sometimes subverted. Yes. So yes, see you soon ish. I hope. Have a good 2021. Have a good January. Have a good, okay, it's February now. Have a good February. See you. Bye.